Hey everybody, welcome to the class. We're going to talk about cultivating authentic expression, authentic self-expression. And
Hmm.
it's like what people say, be yourself. And then, your natural kind of question is like, yeah, but what if myself kind of sucks, Like what if I'm inside just an asshole, like that?
Should I pursue with
What do you
just
do?
being
Yeah,
myself?
should I be authentic, Like does anyone want that? Like, well, that's the kind of thing you're going to learn
At
in
the
tonight's
at the
class.
core of my being.
At the core of my being, I'm an ass. That's who I
Asshole. Yikes.
am.
We're just kidding, everyone.
Yeah, well, that's a joke. That's we try to entertain as well as inspire. It's a tough business that we're in. Um,
So,
I'm Dr. Asatar Bear. This is Leah Schaefer. We're here every week teaching heart rhythm meditation. This is a method of meditation that comes out of Sufism. And in this method, we really focus on the breath, making the breath very deep and full and rhythmic and balanced and focus on the heart. So we're going to share that with you tonight. Um, but first, let's talk a little bit about, how does meditation help you to be authentic? How does it help you to express yourself authentically? This is like we always try to pick a theme, and because our thought is that meditation should be helpful. It should
yeah.
be tuned to the things you're working on.
Yeah, we hope that we apply meditation techniques to our obstacles,
Yeah.
and as well as just like to encourage our growth and development. And we essentially want to share that with you. And so each week, the tools that we share, there are definitely similar themes, but the meditations are always different. So we hope that it's helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. And if it is, write us a comment, send us a note. You can send me a note on Twitter, or you can reach Leah on Instagram. Um, so, what do you think, Leah? What if you're yourself and people just don't like you, or don't connect with you, or whatever?
You want me to answer the question? Um,
Tell
well, I mean,
everyone.
I wouldn't know. No, I'm just joking. So I'm just kidding.
Blessed with a
No,
wonderful personality.
as no, actually, I mean, I think I had a fair bout of being a scapegoat, and being a total nerd for a long time, and so which I still consider myself a nerd, but like, but I can feel sometimes when people are not responding to me the way, like in a positive way.
Right.
Um, I can feel usually it's actually like me not being able to access my authentic self. It's like almost like my whole personality becomes based in like this fear-based experience, and it's like my
Mm-hmm.
teenage self comes out, my insecure teenage self comes out, and it's like people start bumping back against that.
Mm-hmm.
And even if I know it's happening, I can't necessarily control it. But I actually think that it's not in those moments. It's not who I feel I am deep inside the core of my being. It's like more like a byproduct, a distortion of my light coming out in a way that presents as like anxiety or as insecurity,
Yeah.
because of a distortion that I have inside myself. So I actually don't really feel like it in those moments. It's who I really am, coming out.
That's a really good point, and thank you for sharing that, because I think, it's like our fear often shuts us down. And when
Hmm.
we feel that, right, we're afraid of, how we're going to be seen, that we're not going to be met, that we'll be rejected. I mean, there's so many things to fear out there, right? I mean, like, and
Yeah.
we don't want to minimize that, right? Like, um,
No.
that's real stuff to work with. It's hard to
Yeah.
work with, but it's like maybe there's a certain dissatisfaction it gives you, a certain pain that it gives you to feel like, I'm not being who I really am, um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I
When
think
I
so.
was
I
a
think there's some.
teenager, I thought it was just who I was, but it was like through
Yeah,
meditation, through experience, like I had deeper, more profound experiences of who I really am
who you are.
inside.
Yeah,
Right. And so it's kind of funny. It's like we're like onions, right? Like all these layers, or
many
we're like
layers.
cakes. We have all these layers, whichever one you identify more with.
I mean, my answer to the question is like, like, can you authentically just be an ass? I mean, I don't think, I think like
Mm,
who we are on a very deep level, um, we are the divine, we're
mm,
infinite, that's where our qualities come from, we're like, Hazrat Nikon describes it as like a line that starts at a certain point, but then continues on forever, right? So we're aware of the starting point, we're aware of our individuality, but we're not aware of the forever part,
mhm.
or not normally, I mean, like, and this is one of the points of meditation is to experience your full being, not just the parts that you're already aware of. And then that
Yeah.
helps you put things in perspective, right? You can't really understand your limited individuality without understanding the unlimited, and because that is
Mm,
very much part of us, and a lot of our longing comes from that, I mean, we have
yeah.
endless longing inside of us, um,
Yeah.
so the
Yeah. And
longing for the infinite.
the long, yeah, exactly. And I would say like this topic, the reason it's so important. Well, there's a lot of reasons that this topic is important. First of all, like just for your own level of being a secure person, like being able to accept yourself fully, who you are, is a really big step toward having better self-esteem, toward having more security in yourself.
Right.
And it's highly important. But then also I find one of the greatest art forms that we will ever do is the art of our own personality. Um, and so this every moment, like whatever you are expressing, it doesn't matter what you're expressing. The point is like you are uniquely yourself, and it's like the colors that come through you will not come through anyone else. And the way that life experiences itself through you, and like people experience you, there's no replacing you. And so this like art of character, this art of personality, I find is like one of the greatest things that we cultivate and develop, our
Yeah,
character, our actual character. Yeah.
absolutely. And then there's this point, so there's part of it which is like about ourselves and our own potential and our own relationship with ourselves, right? And then there's like another piece that has to do with relating with others, right? Connecting with others,
100%.
And I
100%.
feel like
And
this is like a
yeah.
kind of a follow up to our class last week where we were talking
Yeah.
about self confidence and vulnerability and dating. And, like, how do you connect with somebody, right? You can't really do it without sharing yourself, and that's a moment of
Mhm.
vulnerability. And,
Yeah.
we have all these ways that we avoid that, and then
Mhm.
we sort of complain like, oh my God, it's so hard to connect with people, right? Like,
Yeah.
well, maybe, you got
Yeah.
to take your medicine, right? Like it's, you know, I mean, and
Yeah.
not that it should be some awful thing, right? But it's like you have to let people
Yeah.
in
You
if
have
you
to
want them to be in there, like you got to kind of let them in.
you have to let yourself be seen,
Yeah.
if you really, because I know it's like something, it's like one of our fundamental nutrients, is love and connection and intimate relationship. And we can't have that without letting ourselves to be really seen by another person. So
Yeah.
yeah, 100%. Like this, that was the other thing that I think is the most important. So
We in pursuing the topic of vulnerability, like I kind of think about like how is it presented in our culture, and there's a lot of moments of like I would call it like a fake vulnerability, like there's moments where
mhm.
people are like doing things that look vulnerable or whatever, like maybe they're crying, like, but it's not, they're not really, like they're not really being vulnerable, like they're not sharing anything, right? Like, um, I mean, there's a long tradition of like people crying in a courtroom situation, let's say, right? Because they're trying to beat a rap, but
Yeah.
I think of any kind of situation where it's like your intent in expressing emotion isn't really, it's not really coming from you. It's an attempt to kind of manipulate, somebody
Right.
else, or like it's an attempt to,
Right.
make yourself appear to be the victim, oh, it's so unfair, poor me, whatever, right? And this
Yeah.
is like in psychology, they talk about the drama triangle, they going from
Mhm.
victim to rescuer to persecutor, right? This whole triangle,
Mhm.
and like playing the
Right.
victim, if you're playing the victim, that's not really being vulnerable. Like that's
Right.
a role that you're playing. That's not who you are, right? I mean, like real vulnerability involves sharing something real about who you are, and it doesn't need to be like the most shattering realization ever, whatever revelation ever.
No,
Um,
no.
but it's got to, you feel when something's real, um,
Mhm.
and when it's
Mhm.
not.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it can be even confusing for the individual, and so it's like, who's stuck in the drama triangle,
Yeah,
and so it's kinda like I think, you know, I think we're hitting a lot of different points here so far, but in this particular case with like, am I in the drama triangle or am I being my authentic self, right? So, is kind of the question, and if you're not sure, then just start to what we'll practice doing tonight. Start to really go like layers deeper with what you're actually feeling in your heart and what your intentions are and where you're acting from. And that's
yeah,
true in any case, like to towards becoming your authentic self. It's like coming deeper into the layers of who you are fundamentally and what are your intentions and where are you acting, speaking, expressing from. So just getting to know those parts of yourself in meditation can be helpful for that.
and also like what are you looking for? Like you mentioned intention, that's really important. And are you looking for something which is going to make you whole on some level? And are you putting that outside of yourself? Are you putting that in somebody else's hands? um,
Hmm.
that's that's not good, right? Because we
Hmm.
we our connection to
Hmm.
source comes from within, right? It cannot be cut off by somebody else. It can't be validated by somebody else. Now, this isn't to say that, like, love
Hmm.
involves respect and validation, right? Of course, that's part of it.
Hmm.
But like, there's a difference between receiving that, like being respected by somebody else is amazing, right? But like, that's never
Hmm.
going to come in. You're never going to allow that in if you don't respect yourself, right? So, you kind of have to have that, it's
Yeah. And
yeah,
your point about outward validation, like being motivation, I think that development of the inner validation or the inner knowing of yourself and inner accepting of yourself is what's really helpful in being able to authentically express yourself, because it's like no matter what happens to me, I know I'm going to stay with myself. Like
yeah.
I might fuck up, but I'm going to stay with myself and like accept that I fucked up and keep going, right? Like keep try again, um, um, uh, there was something I wanted to say about that, like but anyway.
I
Oh,
think
just
of Go ahead.
okay, okay. Sorry. Okay. So a lot of the time why I couldn't be my authentic self was from a fear of rejection. Okay.
Hmm.
And so like I had like the classic people pleasing tendencies. I don't think I don't now, but they're much less. And there was just a really strong fear of rejection. And then I went through an experience in a relationship where there was like a very harsh rejection of me, um, and it hit really, really deep.
Yeah,
To be perfectly authentic, and I had to really learn to not reject myself. Like that was the moment where it was like somebody can reject you, but you don't have to reject yourself, and like to stay fully present with myself
yeah,
and to stay in alignment. What I find is like staying in alignment between my heart, my mind, and my spirit, and my body, of course, but like staying in alignment with these parts of myself regardless of what's happening and regardless of society's expectations or regardless of how I think I'm supposed to fit in.
yeah.
It is when I become more free. That's when I become much more free. And so just working with this harboring of like, uh, even you could even pretend like, okay, the worst thing has happened. Now what,
Yeah.
right? and it's really that, like, can you come home? Can you come home and, like, work through it internally? So that was, like, one of the big turning pages for me personally.
That's a great example and great story, Leah. Thanks for sharing that. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, getting rejected hurts so much. I mean, like not being with somebody that you love, that you care about.
Yeah.
I mean, the
God.
pain of that is
Yeah.
intense. And
Mm.
it can go very easily to our, dark places in us and, that say like, well, you're just not lovable. You're just no good.
Yeah.
That's because your authentic self is an ass, like that. Right. And that's not
God.
true. Right. Like, that's not true.
Right.
Like, um, when we put these like negatives or positives even on something, that's only a piece of it, right? Like,
Yeah.
like an
Yeah.
eternal, endless, infinite quality, you can't say that that's like, it's like light, right? Like is light good or bad? I mean, come on, like that's not a good and bad are too
Uh,
small categories to like fit our being. And
right.
so
Too
like,
much, it'll burn you alive, right?
yeah, like the part of us that's saying, well, I'm experiencing this pain because I'm bad and I'm,
Yeah.
whatever, right? Like
Hmm.
I'm not lovable, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not the other, right? Um,
Yeah.
just on a fundamental level, that's not true, and we know that, right? But it's also like, you know, um, it's also kind of like taking something personally or taking something that's not really in your control and saying it is in your control, right? Like,
Yeah.
so there's
That's
something
a
kind of
nice way of
comforting
saying it.
about that maybe, but even though it causes you to suffer, of course, you know, because
Yeah.
a person often, they just simply can't meet you, right? I mean, and it's not even really about you necessarily.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
certainly feels like it is
exactly.
though, because intimate relationship, right? Like that's as personal as it gets.
Yeah, and there is risk with being authentic, and there is risk with being vulnerable. But it's like if you can stay with yourself regardless of what happens, and if you can work with and accept yourself in that growing process, then there's much less to fear because it's like it's no longer dependent on the outward validation, like, oh, now I'm finally worthy. Um, but it is a risk. But you
Yeah.
almost I find you almost have to become indifferent toward that. It's like this is who I am, this is what I want, this is what I need, right? And
Life is risk after all, right?
so
We're alive.
yeah.
If you start thinking about that too much, you
Mhm.
start, you start sort of constricting yourself, like you're kind of coming out of that fear, right? Like, I don't want
Yeah.
to do anything that's going to cause me to be rejected, right? Well, sorry,
Safe,
but like,
right?
yeah. I
Better
mean, I
not
should
show
also
my
say,
heart to anyone, right? Like that's the other thing too, is like better not show my heart to anybody. I can't
yeah,
be vulnerable. I can't show my real self, right? That's huge.
if that's where you're at, that's valid, right? It's just that I think none of us are going to be ultimately satisfied there. Um,
Right.
and because we all
Yeah.
go through things, right? I mean, like you take a blow and then you're like, okay, I got to heal from this, right? Like I'm not letting anybody in for a while. Okay, perfectly fine. But you
But
just
you can
understand
still
that that's a choice.
but you can still let your heart be seen in that moment too, because you can say like, "I'm not available actually,"
Yeah,
and
right.
like, like, "I'm in a lot of pain," So like that,
Wow, what a simple
you know?
statement, and yet that is very vulnerable, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
just saying that, like, you know what, I can't get into it, but I'm feeling a lot of pain. Like, wow, how rarely do we admit that?
I
Like,
know.
how are you? Fine. Like that's the kind of, that's the default. And like,
Y Yeah.
yeah. And again,
Sorry,
like,
we
I
should
think there's a difference between like dumping everything on somebody, like when it's not called for, right? Like trauma
it's
dumping.
Yeah, this is why we continued last week's topic with this theme because we have so much to say about it, but we should definitely meditate.
Let's meditate. Before
Okay.
we do that, just here's a comment here from
Oh,
our
great.
friend Akbar Kadus, who says
A&E
the
comedy
A&E Comedy
meditation
Meditation
show.
Show. We try.
Yay. Thank you
Entertaining
for
and
being
inspiring.
here, AQ.
All right, well, let's take a upright meditation posture. We'll move into meditation, and we want to have that nice upright spine so that you feel energetic, But you want to also relax into that posture. So having a good chair, good seating is important for that. You don't want something that where you sink down too much. Couches are hard to meditate on because your butt sinks down and then your butt is like lower than your knees, and this makes it hard to have your back straight. And if your back's not straight, you kind of sink down and become less energetic. So we know meditation, we want to be still, we want to be energetic, but we want to direct the energy within, right, to our hearts. So once you have that posture, just take a deep breath and try to release any extra tension that you don't need. Feel yourself being in alignment. And this is a lot of what we're trying to do in meditation. Bring ourselves into alignment. All parts of our being, all layers of our being. So as you begin to pay attention to your breath, breathe down deep in your body. Allow your belly to expand as you breathe in and contract as you breathe out. And just that shift in your breathing diaphragmatically, breathing abdominally, that shift in your breathing changes things. It allows your energy to settle deeper into your body instead of being all up in your head, as it often is. Then you work on making the breath slower. And just extend the exhalation somewhat. Breathe out more and control the inhalation. Just allow that stream of breath to take a little bit longer on the inhalation and the exhalation. Deep and slow. And then we also want to make our breath rhythmic. We want to make our breath the same length and intensity on the inhalation and the exhalation. So, because breath is life, and what we're doing with the breath is we're exchanging energy, we're giving and receiving. And that's what life is. But it works best when it's in a balance. And the same is true of the breath. We want to have our breath be balanced in terms of what we're receiving on the inhalation, the energy of life, the essence of life. We want to receive that. We long to receive that. And we also long to give our unique voice to the world, our unique energy. We long to express ourselves. We long to give our gift. And that is spiritually, that's the exhalation. So by keeping those in balance, we are keeping ourselves in balance, and we're creating a very powerful rhythm that allows us to do this. So we also want to focus it on our hearts, and we can do this in a couple of ways. We want our breath to energize ourselves at the deepest level. So we're breathing in and out through the center of our chest, through the heart chakra, the master chakra, the one that holds all of the other chakras. The Sufis say the heart is bigger than the whole universe. It contains both what you know, your personal emotions, and also timeless, infinite, perfect realms of feeling, like that you start at the personal and keep on going until it opens to include all. So practically speaking, we can do this by paying attention to our breath and just visualizing it coming in to our chest as we breathe in and radiating outwards from our chest as we breathe out. But what better way is there to pay attention to your heart than by feeling your actual heart beating? So if you can, just tune into your heartbeat. Maybe place a hand on your chest. Maybe press lightly on your breastbone with your fingertips so that you feel that heartbeat, that pulse. Maybe you feel it in your chest. Maybe you feel it in your fingertips. If you press slightly like that. Maybe you can feel it without that. But maybe you can't feel it at all, right? These are all possibilities. So if you can feel it, great. Time your breath to the beating of your heart so that you have the same number of beats on the inhalation as you do on the exhalation. And this accomplishes the two tasks at once, right? It makes your breath rhythmic, and it also focuses your attention on your heart. So work on that a little bit. Choose the number of beats that works for you. If you're new to this, perhaps you do 4. 4 beats in, 4 beats out. You try that for a few breaths. Maybe you want to go a little bit further. Maybe you try 6, maybe 8, maybe 10 or 12. It's not a competition, of course. We will award no prizes for breathing technique here. So you work with what feels right to you. And just settle into the experience of rhythmic, heart-centered, slow, deep breathing. Now, of course, we'd also like our breath to have power. It already has more power because you're really paying attention to it. You're really focusing on it. You're really making it smooth and even, giving it a powerful rhythm. But there's even more that you can do to really turbocharge it here. And that is breathe more. Make your breath full. So the way that you do that is you squeeze your abdominal muscles as you're breathing out. And breathe out far more than you're used to breathing out. Really squeeze the air out of your lungs. Squeeze out all the breath. And then breathe in and control the inhalation so it doesn't just come rushing in, right? You want your breath to have a smooth, even flow. So if you breathe out and use your abdominal muscles to breathe out, what happens is that the air wants to rush in, the breath wants to rush in, right? So you don't allow that to happen. You control the inhalation. And then you reach a moment where it's sort of like you can release that. And then you reach a moment where you feel like you're kind of full at your normal breathing way, right? But then you keep on going and really expand the rib cage and the chest. So you start off by just breathing into the belly, but to make the breath really full, you've got to involve the chest as well. So you're doing a combination now of the two kinds of breathing, which are diaphragmatic and thoracic. Basically breathing in the belly and breathing in the chest. Normally we would just do one of those, right? Like when we're relaxed, we breathe in our belly. When we're sleeping, we breathe in our belly. When we're stressed, when we're in a physiological state of arousal, we breathe in the chest. We contract the abdominal muscles to protect the organs and so on. So now we're doing this very interesting combination of both kinds of breathing. Why do you need your breath to have power? Well, listen, the things that we are asking from ourselves are big. They're hard, I mean, connecting with others, knowing who you really are, these things are huge. You need the power of the breath. If you have that, you have an enormous really powerful tool in your arsenal. Right? So that is the point of really working on the full breath, making your breath very powerful. But never lose control of it. We want to have the breath be very smooth, very silent, very much under control, right? It's a stream that's very smooth and even, like a swing. Excuse me.
Bless you. Bless your heart, Dr. Asatar Bear.
Thank you so much. You might notice all kinds of thoughts, all kinds of sensations. You might see imagery, you might see colors. You might feel physical sensations. You might be annoyed by the sound of me sneezing. That's possible also. This practice really makes your heart come alive. And what is in your heart that is longing to be expressed? What is in your heart that is just longing to be witnessed, to be seen? That's longing to be shared? Your heart is strong. You say, this is me. Here I am. And that takes a lot of courage, right? Because there's going to be times where you're not met. There's going to be times where you show somebody yourself and show them your heart, and they say, well, it's not for me. And there's a pain in that. I've certainly experienced it. Sharing your heart is not a guarantee. But it is very powerful, it touches other people, Even if you're not met, you still have touched somebody by revealing yourself, by saying, here I am, by sharing yourself. There's so much you can learn from your breath. Uniting your breath and your heart. There's so much that it can teach you. That's my cat, Nutmeg, who has something to say here, apparently. A lot of interesting interruptions tonight in the meditation. Well, let's end our practice there then, and come out of our meditation posture if you want, and move your body a little bit. And
that felt nice. I like that you inspired your cat to share her authentic self.
Yeah. Well, she's a bit of an ass, but that's who she is on an authentic level.
Oh man. One of the things that came up for me when it just kind of naturally came while we were meditating from my heart was like being your authentic self doesn't mean being your perfect self. Those are very different things.
Right. That's a good point.
I was because I
Now,
think
wait,
that's
are
what
you saying that
tends us
some people out
up.
there who meditate are not perfect? Is that what you're saying? Oh my God.
I mean, I
Wow.
don't know any of them, but
Yeah, right.
just
We're not talking about ourselves here.
I can't relate to it. No, I'm just joking. No, like honestly, one of the biggest freedoms I find is in this kind of fuck it mentality of like, this is me and today I'm doing great and tomorrow I might be a mess and that's okay, like it's all part of
Yeah,
being human. It's all part of the human experience. And so sometimes like I think we hold these treasures in us, like if it comes to like our intimate relationship, it can be like this treasure of love inside of us. But then also just in our work, like our the work that we really want to bring out into the world, that can be really, really precious to us. And
yeah,
so like have this big precious energy. And it can take a lot of time before you feel ready to like how do I want to say it? How can I get this out of me, like this deeper feeling out and through me? But if you're waiting to be perfect or you're waiting for something to be perfect before you do it, like you might never actually do it.
yeah.
Um, and it's not because it's really not about being perfect. It's about being like fully like human,
Being
and
yourself, right? Look
yeah,
at this.
be yourself.
We have a little note
What's
here
it say?
just saying hi from Meowsies. And we had a
Hi.
cat.
Oh, the shot. Yes. Hi. That's funny.
Well, of course, we
Mm.
appreciate all the messages that we get. It's very nice. We like that you guys come and meditate with us live, catch the vibe. You know,
Yeah. Maybe
if
that
you're watching
person's
the
in
recording
France.
later, I hope some of the vibe is still here. I don't know how long it keeps for.
I authentically don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. And what Leah's saying is being authentic involves using the word authentic a lot. Actually, that might be a little bit of a red flag. I don't know.
You're safe. No, I don't know. I don't know. Um, yeah. Well, all right. Let's see. So, um, does anyone have any questions out in the crowd about like, obstacles? Please, if you do, give us some questions in the chat. Like, if you have any obstacles with being your most authentic self,
Yeah.
or like trouble that you have with the topic itself, please submit that into the chat. Um, but otherwise, we could start meditating unless there's something else you wanted to bring forward, Asatar.
Um, well, I think that like I just think a lot about like our culture, and like how does our culture like support us in being authentic or not, Um,
Yeah.
like I think our culture kind of it's like we're sort of taught to fear confrontation, and
Yeah.
sometimes, when you're being authentic, I mean like that might include being angry, I mean like
Mhm.
come on, there's a lot of bullshit out there, right? Like, you might
Mhm.
get angry at it. Like that can be very authentic, right? And so we're not trying to limit it to like only things that seem new agey and hippy dippy or whatever the hell, right? Like,
No.
you know, and I just noticed that like a lot of these emotions are like more acceptable for like men to express, let's say, right? Like men are encouraged to be angry, like that's an
Yeah.
acceptable emotion for men, but like how
Yeah.
acceptable is it for women, like I mean,
Yeah,
so
not
there's a lot of
so
like
much.
a lot of garbage here that to deal with, right? Because
Mhm.
like do women not get angry? I mean, come on, like this is ridiculous.
I I get really angry when someone tells me to smile. That really
Oh my
pisses me off.
God, I would tear someone's head off. I never get that. No one ever
I get
tells
it
me
a
that.
lot, like perfect strangers all the time.
I hear
And
this
I'm
from
always
women all the time. Like,
so pisses
yeah,
me off.
that's horrible.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's like I don't know. I mean, I get it. I get the sentiment, but it's like, why would you try to tell someone else anyway? if
Yeah.
I'm authentically like not smiling, like why should I smile? And like anyway, so yeah, I do think like that there's definitely these, because with men, well, you tell me, like, so I mean, I think you're a man that has like a lot of open-heartedness because of all the meditation that you've done.
Thank you.
Do you still have trouble being vulnerable?
I mean, sure. I think, I mean, yeah, like it's like it's like what makes you feel that about public speaking, right? Like public speaking is one of
Mhm.
these, like, it's a terrifying thing, right? For many people, right? And what is it? Like, well, because people see you, like when people look at you, they see a lot, like when you're on stage or whatever, when you're talking,
Mhm.
if you do a show on the internet, let's say, right, like every week or something like that,
Who does
right?
that?
People see you and they study you, and then what are they seeing in you? What, like what, and it raises it raises fear, it raises anxiety, and it forces you to
Totally.
kind of go back to yourself and be um, okay, like what does it mean for me that, like, oh, I didn't look good on the thing or whatever, like
Yeah.
you know, or or I said the wrong thing, or I made the wrong joke, or I don't know, like,
Mhm.
um, I feel like I'm not giving a really good answer here because I don't have
Just
like a
be
real
vulnerable.
concrete.
Be vulnerable. Tell
I
us
can't
what's
think of a thing where I'm like, oh, I should
no.
have,
Well, I mean, it's easy to think of in dating, right? Like, because I
yeah,
know we've had a lot of chats about this, and so like it's easy to think about in dating because it's like you are meeting somebody for the first time and you're like trying to get to know them and you're trying to open your heart. And most likely, if you're dating, then you've been through something where you're now single, like, you know. So I definitely think it's like it's these risks that we take, but generally speaking in the culture, it's like culturally speaking, I hear this a lot, like that the man's supposed to be strong and supposed to be like in the dating world, oh, I have everything together or whatever. Yeah, I'm sure that a lot of people come up against the societal norms, I mean, we
yeah.
come up against this all the time, right?
I feel like
Yeah.
it kind of depends on your age too, though. Like
Yeah.
I went on a date a couple of weeks ago, and like I feel like we did a thing that you're never supposed to do on a date, which is like talk about your exes,
Yeah.
but like like I'm coming out of being married for a long time. I mean, like I can't talk very much about my life without it coming up, so it's
Yeah.
like um and like the woman that I was seeing, like, she has like a young child, and so it's like it's going to come up, right? You don't have to get very far into a conversation for it to come up,
Yeah.
um and then it's like, but like you want that to come up, right? Because it's like, how are you if you
Yeah.
don't get to know somebody, um like, I don't know, like if I hid that about myself, I'd be like, oh my God, right? Like what, like
Yeah.
be hiding a pretty big thing, and it's
Yeah.
also, it's like natural to have questions. And for me, those questions, like I'm very open about it. Like I'm in a huge amount of pain over like
Yeah.
that, and like being in that process of like disentangling our lives and going through a divorce and whatever, and then dating alongside of it, like, like, yes, I'm in, like I'm in pain all the time. I mean, I think for me, like
Hmm.
my thing is
Hmm.
more like discernment, like what needs to be shared in this moment, like, because I don't want to,
Yeah.
like, I
Yeah.
don't want to turn into a therapy session, right? I don't want to like dump everything on somebody, like I don't,
I think,
like
yeah, that's a
it's not
really
like
big
making it their
thing.
problem or something, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah. That discernment, I think, is a really big part of like, I might authentically be feeling something, but then like what's also being true to me and like how I want to share it. If I share it this way, am I really honoring myself? And you know
yeah,
what I mean? Like how can I be still authentically myself with boundaries, or and discernment, right?
And like, what are you expecting from
Yeah.
the other person too? Because it is about kind of connecting with that other person, right? Not just
Hmm.
being so into your own story that you sort of forget that, there's a relationship happening here.
Yeah. Well, let's meditate. So,
All right.
I want to people please with our viewers. I want them to be happy with how much we meditate. So let's close our eyes. um, I authentically want that. Okay, close your eyes when you're ready. Um, and hey, like even right now, listen to your body authentically. Like, what does your body want? How do you want to be when you meditate? Like today, I'm sitting on a pillow and I'm cross-legged, but sometimes my knee really hurts and I want to be sitting on a chair, or sometimes I just don't feel good and I want to lay down when I meditate. Maybe I can't stand still or close my eyes and I need to do more of a walking meditation. So listen to your body and authentically respond to it. And then once you have a sense of that, once you gauge with that, deepen your breathing. And start to tune in with your heart. So connect with your physical, energetic, and emotional heart. How are you feeling right now physically? So you continue with your full deep breathing. You can even use your deep breathing to kind of do body scans. When I ask you, what are you feeling like physically, you can actually use your breath to scan your body and actually find out. You might not have checked in with your body today. And then, if you like to, also see what's happening inside your heart emotionally right now. What is your heart feeling? And it's probably feeling an entire orchestra of different notes and different music, because that is the nature of our heart. But sometimes there's one or two or three particular feelings that are stronger. And whatever that they are today, because they'll be different in this moment versus another, meet them. Meet them with your breath and with your presence. And if you can, meet them with acceptance, meeting all that's inside of you, all that's happening inside of you with an acceptance that that is what's true and authentic to you in this moment in time. And to me, my breath is like my saving grace, because whatever's happening inside my heart, my breath is almost completely showing up and meeting that experience. So it makes it feel like the emotion is not alone. The feeling is not alone. It's like I'm right there with it, and I'm not only there with it, but I'm breathing into it. My breath is actually washing, nourishing, comforting, transmutating, all at the same time. Maybe if it's a positive feeling, amplifying that positive. No, acceptance doesn't mean enabling. Acceptance is like, this is what's true right now. And then you have this choice of like, what should I do with that, right? And so if you're in pain, I can offer that maybe compassion, self-compassion is what would be really nurturing to you. Understanding, self-understanding. I know, I understand. Telling your heart. Maybe you feel, and I want to encourage everyone meditating with us tonight that, or whenever you're meditating, that try to find those precious feelings inside that precious energy in your heart. What you really want to share. Maybe it's this deep connection with people you're in relationship to in any form. Maybe it's a feeling of your calling or the work that you really want to accomplish or the art that you really want to create. Maybe it has to do more with healing that you long for, balancing that you long for. But what's that precious energy that it's like you naturally kind of hold it close to the chest, that you hold it deep in your heart naturally? And as you tune into that energy, breathe it in and out of your heart as if you are connecting with it more. You're almost amplifying it with your attention and presence in this moment in time. There's a saying from Hazrat Inayat Khan: when you become straightforward, a straight way opens up for you. And so I want to really encourage you, with all my imperfections and with all our human imperfections, I want to really encourage you to find your way of bringing this inner energy out, this inner light, love, fire, inspiration out through your being, to live it, not just hold it, but to let it live through the expression that is you, the expression of life that is you. And we only have a little bit more time, and so please continue with this meditation afterwards if you want, but just for a moment, breathing water breath. So in the nose and out the mouth, you're still doing deep, full breath in rhythm with your heartbeat if you can, but attuning to that deep, precious energy at the core of your being that you most want to connect and share. And inhaling through your nose, exhaling through your mouth. And just to help energetically open up these channels of expressing that energy, I'm going to encourage you to breathe from your heart as you inhale. Breathe from your heart up through your throat. And then as you exhale, exhaling as if this almost wave of energy is coming into the back of your throat and out through the front of it. So as a two-part, you're connecting your heart up to your throat, inhaling from your heart that precious energy, bringing it up to your throat. But we don't want it to get stuck there. So as you exhale out of your mouth, it's almost like this freeing experience, releasing the jaw, releasing tension in your throat, and letting this energy move from the back of your throat, through your throat, and forward. Just creating space for that which is already inside of you to be able to resonate out through you with fewer obstacles and with fewer resistance, less resistance. And trusting that when you become straightforward, that a straight way will open. When you become more yourself, the world will have no choice but to mold and adhere to who you now are and who you've now become. Even if it's not perfect, which it will not be. And that's okay. And then as you're ready, we're going to cut this meditation a little short. And as you're ready, just moving your body and opening up your eyes.
Nice meditation, Leah.
Thank you. I felt the vibe tonight. I felt the people. So,
Yeah. That's what we're doing here, right? We're creating a vibe. And, you know, it's easier to meditate together than it is to meditate completely by yourself. You know? So, just like it's easier to get on a ship if you have a long body of water to cross than it is to jump in the water, start swimming.
Hey, I like that.
Well, everyone, we're here every week. We do this show live so that people can participate, ask questions, catch the vibe. If you want to support the show, go to our Patreon link. It's in the description. Be sure to connect with Leah on Instagram if you want more inspiration in your life. If not, don't bother. Thank you so much for
if it's
joining us.
authentic to you.
Yeah, if it feels authentic. You know, we wouldn't want you to be inauthentic here.
No, no pressure. No pressure.
Thank you all for sharing the vibe with us this evening, and we'll see you next week. Namaste.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.